Welcome to Campus Life Now. My name is Kwesi, and this is Radio Forward. Today, we dive into the conversation shaping our world. Today, we're joined by members of the Political Science Student Association, a group that's dedicated to fostering political engagement, debate, and understanding among students. From global events to campus activism, we explore the role of young voices in shaping our future. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'd be happy to. My name is Cullen Najir, and I serve the student body as the president of the PSSA. This is?
I'm Ryan, and I'm the vice editor-in-chief of the Digital Media Lab under the PSSA, and I'm a fourth-year major in history and political science.
Wonderful. So why don't you tell me a bit about what inspired you to join the Political Science Student Association?
Yeah, no problem. When I first was inspired to join the PSSA, it was in my first year. I remember being very unsure about what I wanted to do. I'm a political science major, but I still wasn't sure about what direction to take. And I remember that there was this individual from the PSSA who was a vice president. He came to our class and essentially spoke about their mentorship program and how it'd be a great opportunity to join. I then took him up on that offer and became a mentee within the PSSA's mentorship program, and essentially got to learn a lot more about not only political engagement, but how to succeed academically at UTSC. And so that's helped me balance both my extracurriculars and my academic responsibilities as well. And seeing the commitment to the group to ensuring that the best opportunities are given to our students, specifically who we represent, from public policy to political science and public law, I thought this is a place I wanted to be. They took a chance and invested in me when it came to providing mentorship. It was good for me to use my own skills and my learnings to give back to our student body.
Nice, that's wonderful. How about you?
So it was in my third year, and by that time, because I do a lot of international relations stuff, and I believe that I had a lot of good experience and skills to teach people, but then originally I was like, how do I want to pass this knowledge on to other people, because I thought that I would be graduating soon, and I want other people to learn more about like political science in general and how to also well in a more pessimistic sense survive political science. And that's when I learned that the PSSA had something called a mentorship program where first and second year students can sign up as mentees, and third and fourth years, such as me back then, were able to sign up as mentors to teach them on various courses, or maybe how to do readings, how to write good essays, and that's how I joined the PSSA. And with time, I got to know more about my mentees, and I further solidified my engagement in political science in the PSSA during my fourth year by applying for the vice editor-in-chief position.
Nice. That's wonderful, both your stories. So at this point, I'm just going to ask you to, tell me a bit about your association. How does your association encourage student involvement in politics?
Yeah, will do. So firstly, we are technically classified as a DSA, so a Departmental Student Association. So we're linked directly to the Political Science Department. So we represent all students in political science, public policy, and public law. And we essentially have two main goals. One is to help integrate them socially, so help build a community for them to have people to lean on through examples such as our mentorship program, and additionally prepare them for the workforce and for the next stage, which is whether that's post-grad or straight to, into the workforce essentially. To do this, we have a variety of programs to help build and solidify their skills. One, we have multiple events where we're usually bringing speakers and people within these fields to relay information to students, whether that's city councilors, MPs, or MPPs, which could give advice to students. Or we have more longer programs that are bring them from A to B to build more hard skills. An example of this is our parliamentary series program, where essentially we bring around 80 to 100 students through Canada's political process. So teaching them about how to write bills, separation of powers, jurisdictions, things like that for about 5 months from September to around January. And then we bring them either to the House of Commons or the Senate of Canada to craft policies, debate, and essentially simulate Parliament to help develop those soft skills, but also learn a bit more about research and their place in democracy. So whether it's external trips or events on campus, we try to build up those skills. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Did you want to add something to it?
I think that another few events that we also have are like events, for example, on on master stuff. For example, I think last month we invited someone who had at one point been in a master's admission board, and he taught a few students on the basics on how to write a good cover letter and how to secure good references. I also think that what we do is very important to build existing political science students to the future.
I see. So you mentioned, you both gave me some good examples of like mentoring, of like, how do I say it? How students can get involved both internally and externally.
Yes.
Now, my question for you is, do you think young people today are politically engaged than previous generations? And then,
I personally believe our generation is more politically engaged. One is social media,
Right.
Political issues, whether it's right in your community or across the pond, you're seeing them play out right on your screen. And with how social media is set up, where it essentially filters things that are directly towards your interests, you're continuously going to see political issues that align with the issues that are most dear to yourself. Next, I'd say a lot of the political issues affect us more directly now. When our generation looking towards housing, accessible food, I'd say the purchasing power of the money we use, it's a lot less, it's more diminished. And so now, as students trying to go through undergrad, purchase books, purchase lab materials, we feel the pressures a lot more directly. So I'd say that's the awareness. Now is the engagement, which is actually voting and getting involved in political parties. I'll actually recant the earliest thing I said, which is we're more engaged. I'd say we're not engaged in that sense, as in the structural elements of politics where we can meet with our MPPs or we could go and door knock, phone bank. We're not doing that as much. We are very knowledgeable. If you ask the average student what are the political issues that are affecting you in Canada, they could most likely give a response. But when you ask them, what are you doing to change that, I don't think most are as politically engaged.
I see.
Yeah.
And
I also think, like, I agree with Khalil Najir's points, but also I think that the modern youth may also be there are arguments to be made about the idea that youth may also be more apathetic towards politics, especially with more incumbent, areas with more incumbent rule. For example, Doug Ford's Ontario, because people think that he has ruled for so long, people don't see the possibility of change, and hence people would be more inclined to simply just not even bother to participate at all if they don't see any change arriving. And at least in China, how I would say is lie flat, where people would simply just don't care about politics that's going on and just try to live their own lives in peace.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna hold on a sentence you made in your previous statement, and so you mentioned social media playing a big role in politics in general. So what are your thoughts on the role of social media in shaping political opinions today?
Mm-hmm. So I'd say it plays a very large role into the curation of our beliefs and our outlook on how we view issues around us. In terms of would I say it is negative or positive, I would say it's more negative because it's self-reinforcing. As I said, how algorithms function, where it's continually when you search for things that align with your own pre-made beliefs, it's going to keep feeding information related to that, whether it's true or false.
Right.
And it's also what social media, when you're scrolling, it doesn't have time to provide as much nuance as, let's say, a lecture or a book may have on an issue. It's really on the most extreme points and usually paints issues as zero sum. Everything's bad or everything's good in this sense. So in terms of that, I'd say it plays a very large role, and overarching, it's negative in my sense.
Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to ask you a quick question, just for a brief answer. How do you think global politics, shapes or impacts a student life for future career opportunities? Like, let's take today's world, for example. Like, there's a lot of political opinions around. I'm just going to push it to you, and then you tell me what you think. Let's see if... my ideologies are going to change about this.
Yeah, sounds good. I also have Ryan speak on this as well, because he's very well versed on it. I'll speak specifically to Canada. We have a very diverse culture, and also at UTSC, a very diverse student body. And so what that means is we're not just being inundated on a narrative from the state or a narrative from the West, essentially. We're always getting other points of view, and that's something even the curriculums at UTSC always try to reinforce. I'd say it helps us to become more global citizens and to understand the world around us. And when we make decisions, we're not just thinking about how it affects us or Canada. We also think about how it affects those all around us, because it's brought them closer. A lot of these people are our friends. A lot of these people are co-workers, people we work with. And so it adds a human dimension. It's not just in the past where we're speaking about this faraway land and we have conflict with them, or they're having conflicts. We could see it play out, whether it's protests on our streets, whether it's a friend who's had a family affected. So it really humanizes it. And that's something that I'm very thankful for being at UTSC.
One thing that I also learned a lot in international relations, because one of the things my professor stressed a lot upon is always humanize the other side, because nobody perceives what they're doing as evil. Nobody believes that they are the so-called evil empire. Everybody believes that they are doing the right thing in their own logic. So, for example, the reason why Putin invaded Ukraine, Putin claims, is because of perceived NATO advances into Eastern Europe that threatens Russian security. And while I have my own opinions towards it, I also do at least accept the Russian narrative, because I think that for me studying international relations and for us looking into international relations, the least we can do is at least we should also acknowledge and humanize the other side as having their own motivations aside from being evil.
Okay, I mean, I think at some point every villain thought that they were the hero of their stories. So what you're saying is very true, and I'm not sure how to explain it, but I totally understand what you're saying. So I'm not gonna dig a lot into it, but let's move on. At this point, I'm going to get to know your organization a little bit better. We've talked a lot about politics and then what's going on in the world and, engagement in your group. But let's get to know it as an organization. Yep. All right. So tell me a bit about how your organization functions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we have an elected body. Currently, we have about 20 or so students, and so all of the executives are elected to represent our student body, and then the associates are then appointed through hiring processes. And like I said, we represent political science, public policy, and public law students, and we gear events to essentially service that group. So for public law, we like to usually partner with sister organizations such as the Law and Business Association or the Law Society of UTSC. We recently had a moot competition with the Law and Business Association where students got to moot on a case that we presented and essentially craft responses to the case. For public policy, we have an array of policy professionals that usually come in and speak to our students, or we like to bring our students outside of campus to experience it. For example, at the recent City Hall, the budget unveiling with our mayor, our VP External organized a trip to bring around 40 to 50 students to City Hall to learn more about the budget, how it's going to impact us as youth, and to ask questions. And for politics, we like to do it very hands-on, like I said, with our parliamentary program, where we have students craft policies to address issues that are happening day to day. And I'll let Ryan speak more about the writing and the literature of the organization.
So being from the digital media lab, what we do is we're currently beginning to in the time of recording, we are beginning to release academic articles related to global events, where in the previous semester we have gotten students to write about current topics from all over the world. For example, maybe the current war in Sudan or the current conflict of China and Philippines in the South China Sea. I think that a lot of people look into the news to see what's going on, but not a lot of people look deeper than the news. Like, for example, nobody looks at their own readings to understand better. So at least reading and literature-wise, what I aim to is through these scholarly articles, I can hope to provide more historical and maybe a wider context to these events to allow people to better understand what's going on around the world.
Okay, so let me get to understand this a bit better. This is about, conflict of interest and biases. When you're putting out your publications or articles or, your writings, how do you make sure that, it's not subject to, bias or, conflict of interest?
So firstly, what we do is that when the publications come out, it will be separate from the PSSA, in that all of these works will not be attributed to the PSSA, but rather the individual authors that write it, and to further protect the writer's own safety, because in the case that they write topics that are actually controversial, we do hold stakeholder meetings with them to ensure that they do indeed want their name on said publication, and when it comes out and if it attributes any controversy, the writer's name will be anonymous, so they can write it and have little repercussion, since the article wouldn't be attributed to the PSSA and nobody would know who wrote it.
Yeah, and additionally, we have vetting processes, so people who review it within the PSSA as well, to at least ensure it fits. We want it to be nonpartisan. It's just presenting the facts. And we also have professors that specialize in topics being covered, and so they could add more of their own nuance or their own knowledge of this situation that's being discussed.
Okay, that was going to be my next question about the review process and the vetting process to know which article or publications to put out. But you said that very well, and I'm gonna make the question bigger, not just limiting it to publications or articles. How do you handle conflict of interest or people with different perspectives on different political situations? How does your association, handle that kind of conflict, I would say?
Yeah, this comes. I remember I was speaking to one of our professors. I was asking him if we should bring in a political figure from a political party, and he essentially said that we shouldn't limit or try and steer people towards a specific viewpoint, bring the figures in, and then give the students the opportunity to interact and to learn more. So in that sense, when we brought in counselors or MPPs from different leanings, so we don't try and relegate students to only one viewpoint, but it's then at those events we ensure that it's nonpartisan, and the students get to relate to the figure being discussed. For example, we brought in a senator earlier in the year, and we kept it very nonpartisan. He was a guest speaker to essentially launch one of our programs. And then some students wanted to ask questions on his actual political party and what is their platform for helping them, afford groceries or housing in the future. And when I asked the professor if I should have, hey, that's going into like actual politics, should I limit that? He said no. It's up to the students to hold them to account and use opportunities that the PSSA provides to broaden their knowledge. So we bring in the figures, and it's up to the students with how they'd like to relate it. However, we never term any of our events as it's only for this type of politics or this kind, but we bring in people from all across the political spectrum for students to relate. As long as it's measured, it's not into any hateful territory, but just in mainstream politics.
I see.
Yeah.
But did you want to add anything to that, or?
At least I do want to add, like previously we talked about the review process. What we also do is, for example, every week what I do is I individually review the articles that are submitted to me, and I usually do it quite rigorously. It's not just grammatical errors. I usually also look into specific word choices, as in whether is this word choice correct? Because one thing that I find is that if people use an incorrect word choice, it would create controversy because it may misalign their entire article if there is nuance in what they say. So sometimes I was like, okay, you might need to rephrase this because you're talking about X, but then from your words, it seems like you could point towards Y, and I think that you need to, and hence you should probably rephrase it, or maybe even evidence-wise. For someone's article, I was like, I don't think, I looked at the context of this, and I don't think that it fully supports what you're saying. I feel like you can maybe frame it in this way as a suggestion, so hopefully they can use this opportunity to further understand about nuances within politics.
And that's a good thing you do as an editor-in-chief, because just like in text, sometimes you might read a text wrong. They might be saying something and you take it out of context, and using specific words might turn a really good article really bad. So that's very important as an editor-in-chief. Yeah,
especially with the volatile environment we are in. I think that it's especially important within like articles to be more clear on what we said, and also remove any nuance so that potential to mitigate the risk of potential criticism.
Okay, I have a next question for you, which is, what is one big political misconception that you would like to debunk as of now? We're getting into the funsies right now, so give you a minute to think about it.
Let's see. Let me think.
And if nothing is coming to mind, I can move on to the next question, which is kind of similar. It's what political debate isn't getting enough attention?
Okay. I'll speak to the first one. So the one that I'd like to debunk, I hear this so much, is that Canadian politics is boring. I highly disagree with that. I know when you look down south and you see the United States and the scale of issues they're dealing with, or whether it's in South Asia or the Middle East, you see more explosive issues. One may think of Canada and not really appreciate it. But I'd say we have a more refined politics that I really appreciate, from the Royal Proclamation to right now, the establishment of our structures, the checks and balances that we have in Canada, the division of jurisdictional authority from education, provincially to national defense, federally. We have it's like a puzzle piece that's really well put together that I appreciate. There's work to be done, but I'd say the barrier to entry for Canadian politics and understanding and being able to get things done is a lot easier, and that's something I appreciate versus other places in the world.
That's good.
I like relating to like the politics is boring part. I feel like a lot what I've heard some people say online is like, oh, the elections this time are boring. We probably shouldn't watch it. But then I think that one key takeaway that people should know is that a boring election means democracy is working well. Like because since there are no major fights, no extremist stuff being said. Take that how you will. But if everybody is talking in a civil way and there is no controversy during the election, it means that the electoral system is strong and people believe heavily in the elections.
You know, I never really thought of it like that. I never really thought of it that way, that if it's boring, it means like the democracy is working very, very well. That's a good viewpoint, you know?
I agree.
Thanks for that light. So to my next one that I ask is what political debate isn't getting enough attention? Do you have something to say to that or no?
In my perspective, I would say the biggest issue that isn't it's getting a bit more traction, but not as much as it should. It is barriers for interprovincial trade. So currently, it's very expensive to get a good from one part of the country. So let's say to British Columbia to another, which is Quebec. There's so many barriers that you have to go through to move our products around the country. It can be cheaper to get a bottle of wine from Australia to Ontario than it is from British Columbia to Ontario. And because of that, it makes it essentially puts us in a weak position when it comes to negotiating with other countries. One reason right now we're having these issues with the U.S., where we don't have as much leverage, is because let's say we didn't have so many barriers to entry within Canada. We could trade between ourselves, we could enrich ourselves, but we don't. We have so many barriers and so much red tape that we're heavily reliant on the United States. So I'd say looking to cut down red tape, that's very important to Canada, and through doing that, the costs of, let's say, moving wood from British Columbia to Ontario, that would go down. Then the lumber that's cheaper would be cheaper for the house. The house prices will go down. So it's a lot of these little things within Canada that increase the prices, and I'd say slashing red tape would lead to a lot cheaper goods and services.
In your opinion, why is that, and if you know, when did that start?
I'd say that is actually a byproduct of our federal system. So our system is both self and shared rule, where provinces have a lot of jurisdiction when it comes to pricing of certain materials or products that they'd like to protect, whether that's cheese, milk, lumber. And so because of that, a province could do something that's in their best interest, but it's not in the best interest of Canada as a whole. So let's say I really want to have supply management for the milk in Quebec, but that helps the Quebec people who live in Quebec, but it may not help people who live in Manitoba, for example. So we have competing interests, and a big reason is because we live next to the giant of the United States, that we can't, almost mentally, we can't help to or imagine competing with the United States. So we end up competing with other provinces. That's why you have so much regionalism. That's a big issue within Canada, it's regionalism, where people in Alberta don't like people in Quebec, or people in British Columbia don't like people in Ontario, things like that. So I'd say once we stop looking at ourselves just as individual provinces or region, and try and think of the best interests of Canada as a whole, I'd say that would lead to some of the competing interests to subside.
Is that why the gas in Edmonton and Alberta is cheaper than everywhere else?
Yeah, I'd say that's a part of it. One part is just that there's oil in Alberta, and so you don't need to transport it as far. But that's one example where if I want to transport it from Edmonton to Ontario, the cost is going to be way higher versus if it's straight from the United States, for example, or straight from the Middle East.
Wow.
So that's something that we really need to work on as a country. I know the things that are taking up the media narrative right now, it's Donald Trump. It's housing has subsided, but it's also housing. But I'd say if we were to use this rally around the flag patriotism we're seeing right now, and to really unite as a country. So when it comes to standards, making sure that all environmental standards are uniform across the country. When it comes to trucking standards in terms of heights or how much weight a truck could transport, it's uniform across the country. That could lead to a lot of things that we see as expensive going down in prices. Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Can't believe Canada's fucked up like that. That's fucked up.
I was gonna ask him, like, but don't you think these barriers are important? Like, don't you think that they're important though?
I'd say some parts make sense. So, for example, a piece of red tape that exists is that everything that's produced in Quebec is going to be in French. And then if you want to send it to somewhere else, it has to then be translated to English to put on the shelves. So something like that makes sense. But I think a lot more has to do with the competing interests of the provinces. And in my view, I'd say that what I'd recommend is that even if a province loses a bit more in uniforming regulations, so Quebec and Manitoba, or Quebec and Saskatchewan have the same regulations, if it could be what we'd get from the economy, having a stronger national economy, I think that would supersede what the individual province is getting. And from there, that's greater revenue for the federal government. And then through federal transfer payments, it could be recouped with the money the federal government gives the provinces. So I'd say that's something we really need to work on. And I'd say the gains supersede the losses in this sense.
I see.
And also, I do want to state that a potential benefit of this is that by removing interprovincial trade barriers, it also allows for more local businesses to thrive, because an unintended consequence of these interprovincial trade barriers is that people wouldn't really want to open businesses if it's that expensive if it's cheaper to actually import from the border rather than to make their own. But then now, with all of the 51st state coming up, and with Canada opening up interprovincial trade, I think that it gives the opportunity for areas where it's not that well known for certain goods to maybe produce more just for the chance to compete in the interprovincial market. And I also want to state on what you previously talked about, regionalism. One thing I do want to thank President Trump for, unironically, is that
Uniting us?
President Trump actually got Quebec and Alberta to agree on a thing. Keep in mind, during the 80s and 90s, Quebec and Alberta were constantly at loggerheads of each other on federal policy. For example, because to give a brief context, a lot of people in the West see Ontario as neglecting the prairies, such as Saskatchewan, Alberta, and to an extent BC. And in Quebec, some people see Ontario as neglecting French interests while preferring other English provinces. But somehow, because of Donald Trump's rhetoric of the 51st state, Quebec and Alberta have both technically agreed that they do not want to join the U.S. as the 51st state.
Yeah. And actually, to add to something you said in terms of doing business, there's an interesting statistic. In the last 5 years, over $400 billion in investment, so almost $500 billion in investment has gone south of the border to the United States, from Canada to the United States. In the past, we had surplus where investment was actually coming from the United States into Canada. But now, to how hard it is for businesses to do business across provincial borders, many of them are packing up and leaving in order to better trade within the United States versus trying to trade with other provinces. So once again, it's just reiterating how big an issue this is. And it's something that it isn't as flashy as, let's say, building a port or building a railway, but it is something that's critical. I'd say it's something that Canada needs to work on.
I know this is just a straight up no answer, but do you think Canada will ever be the 51st state?
No, I don't. No.
I'll just say that I have seen a few people talk about it, and well, the direct answer would also be no. But on the other hand, it's like America can try. Like technically, it's not like they don't have the military power. But then I saw an article from one of the professors that taught me international relations, in that if America ever tries, what would most likely happen is an extremely costly conflict that would also drag the U.S. down, because Canada is so large. The U.S. would struggle to maintain effective control over these areas, and what perceived Canadian loyalists would probably do is to go somewhere in the Northwest Territories or in the far north, where it would be much harder to find them. And by opening up Canada as the 51st state, it also brings in the risk of, well, in the hypothetical case of insurgents being able to go into American states and cause havoc in these areas.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way that 51st state would happen. Whether it's economically, we rely very much on the United States, but they also rely a lot on us. I believe 60% of our crude oil is used to power the United States. So they need our resources as well. A lot of the supply chains are no longer just within the United States. They're both in the U.S. and Canada. So when it comes to things, appliances, cars, it'd be a lot more expensive. The midterms are coming up for the Republicans, so they want to keep their majority in the House. And I can't see it going militarily either. It would destroy any shred of the positive view on the U.S. has left. We are the West. So let's say they're the perceived sense of morality that everyone else has turned against them. We're the last. It's Canada, it's the European Union. If they turn against us, then they really have nothing else. And multilateralism is what has made the United States so successful in the 21st century. So I don't see it happening.
That's good.
And also, one thing that I don't really see a lot of people mention is potash in Canada. For people who don't know, potash is a very important mineral for the agricultural industry, and it's a critical resource for like fertilizer. And I think Canada is America's top and probably only supplier of potash, considering that I think, reading from different statistics, the next three biggest countries that produce potash are Russia, Belarus, and China. And considering the chessboard now, I find it very hard that the U.S. would rather go to any of these three countries than to go to Canada. Already when President Trump announced the tariffs, I did look on social media, and there were calls from certain Republican representatives calling for President Trump to at least not affect the potash industry, because putting tariffs on the potash industry would also in turn have a huge effect on America's ability to grow crops, not just export abroad, but also to feed their own people.
Two things before Kwesi. Do you believe there will ever be free trade in North America? And the second part, going back to the tariffs, do you feel like Donald Trump's imposition on tariffs was a bullying tactic?
We have had through NAFTA some aspect of free trade. I do believe.
I mean, 100%.
Yeah,
free trade.
100%.
Yeah.
No, not 100%. There are too many interests that would be devastated with complete free trade. A great example is lumber, for example, when it comes to Canadian lumber. Another one is dairy with our supply management in Quebec.
Dairy
so
and
it would
beef, yeah.
and beef. So it would never be 100% free trade. And I don't think we want 100% free trade. Free trade is good for the majority of goods and services in a developed economy, where it opens up competition between businesses. But there are some I'd say elements that are good for a country that need to be protected and require some protectionism. The issue I see with Donald Trump is he's just going all out. He isn't looking at the specific industries or sectors that may need to be protected versus not. It's just 25% completely for everything. So no, we'll never have complete free trade in North America, but we shouldn't want complete free trade. There are some elements that Canada should want to protect as well. Yeah.
I think if anything, a lesson from the end of probably these 4 years is that while free trade is good, it is also important for us to maintain our own sustainable economies. Because how I heard some people worded it was that while the tariffs are indeed bad to Canada, it also shows that Canada should not fully rely on the United States, and this is a wake-up call for Canada, especially for more reliant stuff such as defense, for Canadians to at least, I guess, attempt to shore up their own walls.
Mm-hmm.
I see. So I'm going to be moving away from this topic because they've spoken very clearly to the point where I feel like if I should give them my own pen, they could sell it back to me. They've explained the situations very, very clearly. And then it's making me think, do you think political science degrees are undervalued?
Yeah. I would say they are undervalued, specifically because people don't really see a direct pathway with them. I'd say, firstly, every student should take a political science course. It doesn't even have to be your major. It should be a course, at least, because all aspects of society are influenced by politics. Whether you're in computer science and chip manufacturing in Taiwan depends on China, and you need to understand that. Or whether you want to work retail and you want to know the cost of tariffs and how it's going to affect the goods you want to sell as a retail entrepreneur. So it's important to have political science and have that basic understanding. It is undervalued, like I said, because some don't see the direct pathway. But I'd say it prepares you with the skills, whether you want to be a lawyer, it's great for that. Whether you want to be a politician, it's also good for that. Or policy transcends numerous fields, so whether that's transportation policy, energy policy, environmental policy. Political science can set you up with the foundational understandings so that whatever field you want to pursue, you have some background knowledge to help you succeed in those fields. Yeah.
I would further want to add that I would recommend. I agree. I would want everyone to take a political science course, but more differently, as in I wanted at least for domestic students to treat it as like a civics course, because by learning more about how your government works, you can better understand the laws that we live under today, and the issues surrounding our country today, and what experts and what opinions experts have given on how to solve these issues. And for international students, political science is also important because it allows us to have, a more critical view on the world. We will not just be able to understand the country that we are currently studying in, but we can also look at, for example, in international relations, the grand chessboard and how different nations maneuver to attempt to, in an optimistic way, international relations is not a very optimistic subject, but more so to gain influence and power. Because right now, for example, what we see right now is the United States, Russia, and China in a way vying for more influence over the another. And I think that it is very important for people to at least maybe take a course in international relations to better understand what they are doing and perhaps how would that affect us in our home countries.
Yeah.
I see.
Facts.
Nice. Did you want to add something to it?
Are you almost done? I want to do something fun.
Oh, you want to do something fun?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. Two more questions, and then we'll head into the fun. I wanted to get into it a bit before, but I figured, let me try to understand more. So where do you see yourselves, as students of political science, engaged in like the Political Science Student Association? Where do you see yourself in the future with as a political science student?
Yeah. So for me, I haven't decided what I'd like to do in the future as yet. And it's not because of there aren't any options. It's more there's an array of options. I just want to decide what I believe is best for me. I have so many interests. And political science is good because it sets you up for many different pathways. To give a more specific answer to this, I could speak to some of the students that have left our department. The deputy mayor of Toronto was once a part of our department. I have friends right now that work for ministers that were part of the department, work in the bureaucracy currently with delivering programs and services to Canadians. And I have a friend right now that's actually running to be a member of parliament from the PSSA. So there's so many different options you could take. Another friend, the former president of the PSSA, he's a political consultant, and he's helped an array of different politicians actually win elections, both on the mayoral level and with MPP. So there's so many options you could take and pathways. That's what's good with the political science degree.
I see. Did you want to add anything to that?
At least for my part, what I want to do is I want to go deeper into international relations. So this year I've applied, because this is my last semester here, I've applied for the monk school, and I'm awaiting a reply. And hopefully through what I learn in the monk school, I can hopefully have a better understanding on where I want to go. Because for me, my main goal is I want to be more active. Like want to have a better knowledge and understanding in world politics, especially towards China. And hopefully by learning in monk school, I can at least maybe either help the Canadian government in managing or analyzing relations with China, or developments within China, or maybe or the safer side would be to work for a private corporation, maybe a bank, and help them gauge political risks in different situations.
I see.
And that's Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy?
Masters of Global Affairs in U of T.
I was just gonna ask him what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
I believe it's the top public policy school in Canada. It's with U of T.
And also one of the top global affairs schools.
Where did you say it was?
St. George campus at U of T.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Literally right outside St. George Station.
Okay.
Right. Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy by the U of T. Very dope.
I have never heard that before.
Me neither.
Yes.
That's dope.
Maybe because we're not political science students.
It's a hidden gem.
It is.
I know. So my last question for you before all the fun stuff is, for students who are interested in, joining your organization, how do they find out info about your association? And
So I'd say firstly, social media. Our Instagram handle is PSSA.UTSC. We're also on LinkedIn as well, on Facebook. But Instagram is mainly where we put out our content. If you want to have a more formal role, you could have our elections. We have elections coming up later on in March. So if you want to run for any of the positions we have, whether it's vice president of academics, external, feel free to run in them. And as a political science student, you can automatically run. If you are just a normal political science student, you are actually already represented by us. So you are already a member of the DSA. So that means you come out, vote on decisions. You could let us know things that you may want to see more of, or things less of that you'd like us to better represent you as a student. But I'd say to feel free to come out to any of our events. For a lot of our events, it's not just political science students that come out. We've had astronomy, physics, biology students always join us because, once again, political science transcends multiple different fields. Whether it was we had a conference trip earlier to Muskoka for a weekend. We had people from a lot of other degrees and majors come out with us. For our parliamentary trip to the Senate of Canada, people from I'd say a lot of them were actually from biology that were there wanting to learn more about politics and to debate like that. So, yeah, we could come to any of our events. They're open to all, but if you want a more formal role, feel free to run in our elections or also apply to be hired.
Yeah, and I just want to also add that the hiring thing, it usually happens in the summer, and I think second years to fourth years are allowed to apply. And furthermore, I do want to state an analogy that I have of mine is that even if you don't involve yourself with politics will inevitably involve itself with you. So I always keep that close to my heart as a justification that because politics will inevitably involve itself with me, I should, even if I don't involve myself in like actual policy making, I should at least be cognizant of what's happening and what are the risks to better shield myself and people that I care about from the machinations of others.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yes, so this is the point where I'm going to pass it to Dale to give our first fun question. I have mine right here, but I'm
excited.
You know what? Can I say mine first?
Go.
Can I?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So which politician do you think will be the worst roommate? And then give me a reason why you think that will be.
Does it have to be a Canadian politician or any politician?
Any yes.
Politician.
There
Oh
we go.
no, I don't want to get canceled here.
This is politics.
See.
This is politics. If we're gonna get cancelled, so be it.
He gave up.
Do you want to go first?
I'm trying to think like who would be the who would be the worst roommate. That's a very
I mean, the obvious is probably just Trump. But I don't want to say that. That's so.
Trump?
Yeah, I don't want to say that though.
Say it.
I don't know, AOC maybe. I don't know because we would probably be talking about all the issues with. I don't know, the room, the lighting isn't good.
I don't want that answer. Something else. Give me something else.
You
Give me
don't wanna
something
hear
else.
that?
Yeah, I want something else. If you have it, you can go.
You can go.
Yeah.
I honestly, from what I've heard, Chrystia Freeland is very well known for for essentially pushing others over if it meant more power for her. And how I see it is that, like when it comes to being a roommate, I would really hate it if she suddenly decides to abandon previous agreements just because she perceives that she could get more power. At least from what I know, like during the competition to become vice prime minister, there was a lot of infighting, and there were a lot maybe a rumor, but I heard that Anita Anand cried because of what Chrystia Freeland did in order to attain more power. Like,
getting insider information here. Oh wow.
I don't know, but that's only a rumor. But then the reason why I say like this instead of the more common answer is because it's something in my heart, but it's more like I do want to believe that in the end everybody in, like, if you cut down the rhetoric, if you cut down the actions, in the end they are still more normal people. It's kind of like approaching them professionally versus approaching them personally. Maybe professionally they are forced to act in some way, but if you approach them personally, perhaps there might be a difference in how you see them in public and in private.
I see. I'm still sticking with AOC.
Really?
If she's on my side and we're like protesting, sure, I want her with me. I want her at a protest. If there's a bill and she's on my side, I want her, speaking and debating. But I feel like as a roommate, it'd just be like the wall's not the right shade, or it's too hot, or something like that. I'm sticking with AOC. That's my choice. That's my choice.
Okay.
AOC is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sticking with those. I know she's a fan favorite for many. For this specific question of a roommate, yeah, it's AOC.
Sure, I'll let you have it. I'll let you have it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
She
say
looks
something.
good. She looks good.
It's gonna be very controversial for what I say, but then at least for the more perceived evil of the world, such as Putin, at least if I have no secrets to hide, the worst. If I have no secrets to hide, and I usually don't openly go against him, I wouldn't be that concerned, because in my at least in a personal level, not a professional level, I don't think that he would do anything bad unless if I am personally a risk to his power. For example, hypothetically, I say, oh, I'm going to talk to this person about you, then, well,
Yeah.
I may accidentally fall out of a third floor window.
Crazy. All right. So this is the fun part. Weird laws in Canada. Would you change it? Would you not change it? How you feel about it? Now I'm gonna stick to Ontario. All right.
Okay, let's hear it.
So in Petulia, Ontario, it is illegal to whistle. There is an actual law, Article 3772.3.6 on the town's website, stating that yelling, shouting, hooting, whistling, or singing is prohibited at all times. Are you changing that law? Are you keeping that law?
Is
How do you
that in
feel
like a
about that law?
specific context, like a city council meeting, or just wide ranging?
Petulia, Ontario, you are not allowed to whistle. You're not allowed to yell, shout, hoot.
Yeah,
None of that
that's
shit.
gonna change. That should be illegal. It's not. That's infringement on freedom of expression.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that sounds like it's not in
that's-
accordance with our constitution.
Like that's actually something that I believe you can reasonably change, and with all of the rules and regulations in place, it should pass. But then, like, more or less as a criticism to the law itself, what happens if your house is on fire and you're stuck? There's a window outside, but then, like, so you can't shout. Like, so you have to signal to the firefighters where you are, but you can't shout, you can't yell. So, are you willing to break the law? Are you willing to shout in order and break the law to save your own life?
We should clip this and send it to Petulia City Council. Yeah, say they need to update that ASAP.
100%.
At this point, I would say burn your house faster so they see the smoke.
All right, in Oshawa,
That's where I used to live.
this is where you used to live? Me
Yes,
too, don't worry.
yeah.
You know there's a law that bans tree climbing. So the local law states that no person shall interfere with a tree or part of a tree located on municipal property, including but not limited to attaching, affixing, or placing upon any manner any object, thing, or tree, or part of a tree, and climbing the tree. You changing that law? You keeping that law? How you feel about that law?
I'm not changing that law. Why do you need to be up in a tree at like city grounds? That's I don't see. That seems like it's more like a public disturbance. Like, why on a tree on city? It's specific to city grounds, not wide ranging. Yeah, I don't see why on city grounds you need to be in the tree.
Public grounds, right? Just to be sure, is it public grounds or all grounds?
Yeah.
It says
There is a distinction between whether is
located on municipal property.
Okay, located on municipal property, I'm more or less okay with that, because like you can, like, as long as you can still build a tree house in your own backyard, that I think that's perfectly reasonable. And if, for example, someone attempts to climb a tree, falls over, and gets injured,
yeah, then
the
it's
city
on the city. Why
it will be on the city's
have,
liability.
Like, safeguards? Yeah, that's good for liability
it
of the
is,
city. Yeah,
that is somewhat reasonable.
It's a good law.
Yeah.
On Sundays, people in Bank Street in Ottawa
in Ottawa.
cannot eat ice cream.
in Bank Street.
It is illegal to eat ice cream on Bank Street in Ottawa on Sundays.
What's the precedent for that? That's an interesting law. It's almost like they made this law specifically because someone on Bank Street specifically
I've
did
eaten
something
ice
so
cream
bad.
on Bank Street on a Saturday before. I'm remembering now. I've done that before. I never knew about the Sunday law.
no.
I've done that. I've definitely done that.
Yeah?
I don't even know where that is.
I don't.
It's in Ottawa?
It's a street in Ottawa.
Like, what's the significance of Bank Street, though? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why not?
It's a lot of public buildings, like government buildings, but like I don't see what's different about Sunday. Like if it was because of that, it'd probably be in the weekday you can't do it.
Well, on the weekdays, good.
Yeah.
Just not Sunday.
I don't see the reason.
I was thinking more
Yeah.
like Sunday church laws and stuff, but then I remember that there was also a case I learned where essentially they were like, no, you cannot impose religious observations on everyone else. I think I forgot the name of the case, but I remember that because of the course about Canadian politics. I remember that, and once again, Canadian politics course is important.
Yeah, that needs to go. I can't see a logical reason for ice cream on a Sunday at all. Yeah.
Throw that in the toilet.
Yeah, that's gone.
I
That's
mean,
gone.
what if you're eating an ice cream at 11:59 p.m. on a Saturday, and by 00:00 on a Sunday, you're just running to the nearest trash. You're just running to the nearest trash can.
Crazy. Uxbridge, Ontario, has a law that forbids having a Wi-Fi connection faster than 56K.
That's interesting
Huh?
because I believe the MP that represents Uxbridge, his name's Jamil Javani. He's actually been working to get faster Wi-Fi in the Durham area.
No way.
Yeah, he has been working on that. It's in Oshawa, Uxbridge, and areas in that places in that area, and I don't think he's been able to do it as yet. That's like a big petition he's had to the House of Commons. So maybe this law is actually preventing fast Wi-Fi. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in why the law was created because, how should I say, for these more ridiculous laws, especially with Wi-Fi. At least for the no ice cream on Bank Street, I can still say, oh, maybe it's an archaic law. But then with something so modern as Wi-Fi, I feel like there must have been some agenda put in place.
Yeah, what's the rationale for that?
Yeah.
Maybe Uxbridge is just too small to host maybe a fiber optic thing. So like maybe the resources get thinned out when everybody has high internet. Maybe there's an imbalance.
But then with the development of stuff like...
So you ban it though? Maybe it should incentivize faster or finding a way around it, not to just ban it outright. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
get that.
like now with the development of Starlink and sorts, it's actually a lot more easier for rural communities to obtain faster Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
Oh.
Last one.
Okay.
In Toronto, it is illegal to swear in a public park. The rule, as seen in the Toronto Municipal Code, says while in a park, no person shall indulge in riotous, boisterous, violent, threatening, or illegal conduct or use profane or abusive language. If you're found swearing, you can face a fine of over $200.
You're guilty of that? Oh, no.
Why do you say that? I gotta cut that out.
We'll report. Okay. So
Save me.
this may be controversial. I support it.
You support this?
I support the ban
the
on
madness.
cursing in public. I believe we need to have like a bar of public. Nothing against you.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
A bar of public decency that we strive to attain as a society, and sometimes laws are good at setting that foundation. You don't need to be cursing in a public park. That's where families are. You're involved with the general community. You're not in a specific space that's for that. I believe, we should have some objective morals that we try to align ourselves with, and one of them's public decency as citizens in Canada. So I think that goes with our nature as Canadians.
But then, like, honestly, for this one, I think it's a lot more nuanced because I recently finished a course on the politics of crime, and what I learned, most importantly, was Section 319 on, like, hate speech. And I think that what you said just now aligns, how should I say, it fits all of the hate, it encompasses a lot of the hate speech law stuff, so no espousing hatred against an identifiable community, but then also feel like the no swearing thing is also quite overarching in that while I do agree that there should be some sort of public decency, I also think that this would inevitably come into conflict with freedom of expression, which is, as I quote from the charter, unalienable, unentrenched and inalienable part. So I think that an easier way to fix it would be to make it more clearer. For example, you cannot swear in a public setting. For example, maybe in a private conversation, you can maybe swear in a public conversation, but then you cannot use the park as an area to soapbox your own political views. Would you?
Yes.
Maybe that would be a more moderate way to settle it without further infringing on the freedom of expression.
Fully agree. I could see ways of this being moderated, but I don't want it gone outright. Let's have some decency in our.
And furthermore, the heat of the moment.
capital.
I feel like there's a chance that, like, people who are caught in the heat of the moment would say something that is not related to public conversation, but yet they still fall. They might still get fined because of something that they said in the heat of the moment that probably nobody even heard and much less affected by what this guy said.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's it.
How much is the fine again?
$200.
Ooh.
Over.
Oh wow,
They're gonna run my pockets dry.
You know what's something interesting? This is something I'm going to just refer to with Canadian politics. I think a lot of these are just going to stay on the books until just someone's convicted of it. And it just makes the largest news, like, oh, you're arrested for eating ice cream in Bank Street.
Right?
Yeah, and
I agree.
That's interesting because there's something in Canadian law where not technically, a lot of the procedures and laws we follow aren't like technically laws. Is something I learned recently. They're expectations. For example, with the Governor General, it's not like a law where the Governor General has to sign whatever is passed by Parliament or by the people. Technically, they reserve the right, although you're supposed to act on the advice of the Prime Minister. Technically, you could choose to not sign it. But the Governor General is unelected. They're just a representation of the Crown in Britain. And so it's one of those things where it's technically not illegal, but the minute someone does it, like the minute everyone votes, like, we want this to happen in Canada, and the Governor General says no, then we'll just get rid of the Governor General, right? So I think it's similar to this, where it could just stay on the books, but the minute someone's convicted of, let's say, swearing in the park or like the ice cream, then you're gonna see them rush to get it off the books. So,
and also, I do want to state that while people think that a lot of Canada's laws are like relevant to the modern day, I also think that there are also way more laws that have been created even before Canada was a thing, because a lot of these laws came from the Westminster. With the Westminster system, there also came like Westminster laws that came from maybe the 13th or 14th century. So what I saw in legal jurisprudence is that lawyers often go through and see why was this law made and whether is there any purpose to it existing today. Like there have been more than a few laws that were quashed because simply there was no reason for it to exist to this day. For example, there was a law against false news, but then I don't want to go deeper into the case, but someone was accused of it, and the defendant managed to overturn it because the law was so archaic that the Supreme Court of Canada could not find a reason to why the law should still exist in a free and democratic society.
Right. Honestly, I have one more question, but we're out of time. I'm going to have to ask you that. Is this off camera or bring you guys back? Because I want your take on Bill C-18. I know everybody has their thoughts about it. Me being in media, we're all doing this media thing. I think Bill C-18 is something that we need to speak about or get more knowledge and information on.
Yes.
But that is something that we're going to have to do when you guys come back.
I have thoughts on it as well.
Yeah,
Yes, no
another
worries.
time.
Yeah.
I had one big question I wanted to ask, but I guess we'll wrap it up. Okay, well,
Wait, what's the big question before we
Okay.
wrap it up?
Ooh.
So-
But don't answer, you guys. Just have it in your mind.
Oh my God. Okay, so we've seen the debate in the U.S. Kamala Harris and Trump.
Yes.
Okay.
See how during the election, Kamala had Megan Thee Stallion perform on stages.
Yes. Yeah.
Trump also doing collabs with Aiden Ross and then other influencers. If Canadian politics had like a halftime show, who should perform?
Okay, yeah, one answer, no explanation.
Halftime.
That's a good question.
We only have one option. It's the sixth god. It's Champagne Poppy. Oh gosh, I don't want to call him that. No, wait. It's Drake. I don't want to call him.
Champagne Poppy.
It's
I would
Drake.
just say after what happened last
Drake.
year, I might.
Yeah, I don't want to call him that.
I would really stand back on that one.
Yeah, he's
Way
Drake.
back.
That's his name. It's Aubrey Graham. It's Aubrey.
Aubrey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan?
Honestly, this might be a very halftime show. I don't know a lot of celebrities, but one person I do know a lot is Niall Red. He's like a very famous Canadian YouTuber that does a lot on chemistry related stuff. While it's not halftime show related, I feel like honestly I can stand by him. Like he has no controversy whatsoever, and his videos are actually quite entertaining, no matter if you actually know chemistry or not.
Okay, that's
Oh,
good.
that's a good answer.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I like that.
Okay. And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us today. Big thank you to Khalil and Ryan from the Political Science Association for sharing some insights on politics and also sharing a few laughs with us. My name is Kwesi, and this is Radio Forward, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Good morning.